impracticality in bringing out Shabbat late. Nonetheless, that's seen as giving proper honor to Shabbat rush to send Shabbat away. If you think of the metaphor, which I until 10 o'clock Monday morning, that's not the measured against the other things. But that's the first halacha in this chapter 293, is that we do Mariv a little bit later in order to add on, in order to. However, you need to be careful not to do malacha until you can see 3 small stars in a line. Now, that's how the Shulchan Aruch says. So he says it's not good enough to see 3 stars, and it's not even good enough to see 3 small stars. It's got to be 3 small stars in a line. Now, the idea is that that's obviously later. Once by the time you're already seeing small stars, that's obviously already later than the big stars. So the first thing is that he says that's, when the small stars are out, then you know for sure it's night time. So what about the idea of them being in a line? That's to add on extra for Shabbat. So there again, you see, we daven Mariv a little bit later. We wait for 3 small stars, which is a halacha, but then in a row, which is not the basic requirement for night time. That's to add on extra time. What about if it's a cloudy day? Wait until the doubt leaves your heart.
So I think to see 3 stars near each other, that's just sport masters.
I think near each other probably is the same as in a row. In other words, a clump. Yeah, a clump of 3 stars. That's right. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, Ratzuf, consecutive. Yeah, so I guess look, the Mishna Brura says, even if they're not, even if you can't see 3 consecutive small stars, then just wait another couple minutes and then assume that they're there. But so really consecutive. I mean, I say in a line because that's what I think of, but probably in a cluster would be good enough. Okay, what if it's cloudy? So then you just wait till the right time. Now, for none of us does that really apply unless we're stuck somewhere either without a watch or we didn't check to see what time Shabbat comes out. Then we start looking at the sky. Otherwise, we've got our calendars, and that's all we look at. What I will point out, though, is that the calendar time is not the time of 3 stars. The calendar time is 3 stars plus 3 to 5 minutes, depending on who's doing the calculating. I think the one that our Beth Din sends out is 5 minutes. So when we talk about the time that Shabbat is out, if it says this week was 6:39, it was really 6:34. In order to add on to Shabbat.
But is that for 3 small stars plus 3 minutes?
Yes. Yeah.
In a row?
Yeah. No, the in a row is already the addition.
Okay.
Right? The 3 small stars in the sky, that's the time that Shabbat is out. You add a few more minutes to see 3 stars in a clump, then you can.
So yesterday.
Yes.
You said, okay, Shabbat's not out yet, you've got another minute, but actually it was out.
So
you were just
between you and me, I waited till 6:38 and 40 seconds because I just thought, to people stand around for another 20 seconds. I could see people were already taking plates and whatever else. So that was my justification. So we had 4 minutes instead of 5 minutes, and it was So that's correct. But again, the idea is that we extend Shabbat in the same way that latest candle lighting time is not actually the latest candle lighting time. It's actually 18 minutes later. The official times have got a little bit of leeway at the beginning and at the end.
Does this 3-star thing come in?
Yes, it comes in. Well, it comes in any time that there's the halacha of when is it one day or the next day. So it would come up with sacrifices. It would come up with sacrifices must be eaten. But the twilight is an uncertain. 3 stars could be the end. The truth is, there's another opinion, which he doesn't mention here. It's known as Rabbeinu Tam's opinion. Rabbeinu Tam was of the opinion that Shabbat comes out much later than what we think. I don't know how much later, but I'm going to guess half an hour. That we're bringing Shabbat out 6:39, right? 6:34 plus a few minutes. Rabbeinu Tam would bring out Shabbat 7:15. And you'll hear about people who have the stringency of keeping Rabbeinu Tam time for taking Shabbat out.
Where is that not being able to recognize someone within 4 paces or something?
That's for the morning. When do you know that it's the morning? So for talis and tefillin.
Yes.
So the morning it says, well, you can put on talis and tefillin from the time that it's dawn. So what's dawn? Or it's a subject again. Sunrise and sunset are objective measurements. So what's dawn? So it says, well, when it's light enough to tell the difference between blue and green, or when it's light enough to recognize your friend who's a couple of meters away.
As if you pull a hair out your head, can you see it?
That's interesting.
Have you got hair?
At least you got in your
Yeah.
beard if you know.
On the time of Shabbat, what's the astronomical time that Shabbat comes out? The bacon number they use in 85 minutes, what exactly is it?
Yes, it's a certain number of degrees of the sun in relation to the earth. It's the same question when it comes to fasts and that kind of thing.
But it's sunset is when the sun's completely gone.
Yeah, it's not when it hits the sea.
Yeah. And then in summer, the sun goes down like that, so it takes a much longer time to get dark. In winter,
Yeah.
the sun comes down like this.
Yeah,
So it gets dark very quickly
yeah.
after sunset.
Because my question, I think I might have asked you this before. You go to Peru, you
Yes,
start fast.
yes,
Well, the sky is dark, so it's easy to see stars.
yes,
In New York City, or so is it like
yeah.
you actually three stars in New York City? You thought it was like
No, you never would.
Mm.
well, maybe Shabbat's not out. Maybe you would. It probably eventually gets dark enough. You see?
So Mark Shapiro speaks about people. I thought you'd appreciate this. Mark Shapiro speaks about people who reject the idea of using calendars. So this whole of the times, this whole thing of printing the times is not the way we did it.
That's how the Muslim people.
The halakha says you look at the stars. The halakha says you look to the stars. There's none of this earliest time of tefillin is 6:58. You want to know the earliest time of tefillin? Go out and look to see if you can. On the one hand, that is true. On the other hand, they gave those measurements in the absence of any kind of precise tools. And we saw that if it's a cloudy day, wait until you no longer have doubt.
Yeah.
So we see these were all tools in order to tell us when it actually is nighttime. And now we have more accurate tools to tell us. So
Because the Muslim, they wait until they can see the moon. If you can't see the moon, it's come back tomorrow night
yeah,
for their festivals.
yes.
You've got to actually see it. Otherwise,
I think it's a machloket. There's different. There's two different schools of thought.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I remember
that's what
when
Mickey
they-
Glass told
when
me.
they used to come to the promenade for the end of Ramadan,
Yes.
all waiting to see the moon.
Yeah.
And if you can't see the moon, it's
The
another
fast
day of
away.
fasting.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now he says, now this Amnon will interest you. Somebody really has a very pressing thing that has to happen right after Shabbos. So, for example, there's a mitzvah that needs to be done, and he mamish needs to leave the second that Shabbos is out. So what he's even doing is he's waiting by the boundary of the city. He can't leave that boundary. He's waiting by the boundary of the city for until Shabbos is out so that he can go, let's say, get shroud for the funeral for tomorrow, right? You know, I think it's genuinely important. So what's he supposed to do about Ma'ariv? As soon as Shabbos is out, he's going to go get the shrouds, whatever else. So when should he daven? He can daven Ma'ariv from Plag HaMincha, which is like 3:45 onwards. And he can make Havdalah Shabbat afternoon, not using a candle and not doing any malacha until Shabbat is actually out. Now, that's just like what's going on. So the Mishna Brura explains. Mishna Brura doesn't explain. But the idea is like this. We think of Ma'ariv, or we think of the prayers as being intrinsically linked to their time periods. Shachrit is the morning prayer, so therefore it's done in the morning. Mincha is the afternoon prayer, therefore it's done in the afternoon. And Ma'ariv is the evening prayer, therefore it's done in the evening. But the times of prayer are not exactly synchronized according to everyone to those times. The proof of this is that in summer, 6 days a week, we daven Ma'ariv while the sun is still up in the sky. How can we do such
That's
a
not
thing?
proof, it's just because no one will come if it's later.
So no one will come if it's later,
Yes,
but
yeah.
but that doesn't give a
In
heter.
Bnei Brak, when they daven Ma'ariv in summer.
In Bnei Brak, they have later minyanim. However, let me think of an example. You'll find plenty of places where, especially in summer, They'll have running minyanim from fairly early up until late. Now, Sfardim don't do this. Sfardim are stricter about it. In fact, for us, you come for Mincha Ma'ariv, you can do Mincha Ma'ariv in half an hour. Call it 35 minutes. There was a shul my father-in-law goes to in Joburg. So he says to me, look, they're quite quick. It's 15 minutes. I said, well, us also. It's 15 minutes Mincha, 15 minutes Ma'ariv. He says, no. It's 15 minutes Mincha Ma'ariv. Okay, so that's quick. But we'll go to the Sfardi shul. The Sfardi shul, it's, I should say the Sfardi Beit Knesset. You go to the Sfardi Beit Knesset, you're talking an hour and a quarter. Because they'll daven Mincha while it's still afternoon. And they'll only daven Ma'ariv when it's definitely night. And so they'll have a shiur or a learning session or whatever in between.
Kind of night.
I think 3 stars kind of night. I think so. So it's a much.
They can have mincha up to 2 stars.
And I don't know what they do here for Shabbos in summer. I don't know what they do here for Shabbos in summer. No, you got to do mincha earlier. You got to do mincha before sunset. So you've got a gap. You've got a real gap.
I've been to prayers. It's Friday prayers.
Yes.
It was like
normal. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe they will admit to the practicality. In those kinds of exceptional circumstances.
So mincha's got to be done before sunset.
We try to mincha. Now again, Chabad goes later with mincha, and there are opinions to go later with mincha. But let's just deal with Ma'ariv for now.
And then also, what you're talking about is weekday. I mean, Shabbos is different. Get official.
So it's not really, but we'll see why. So let's say mincha up until one of the Chabad rabbis during the rabbinic conference. So I think on the last day we had a mincha, and it was like a mincha like close to sunset. So one of the rabbis had missed the original mincha, so coming after us. I said, look, we've already done mincha, but you've still got 8 minutes. So he smiled at me and said, you've got 8 minutes. He says, I've got another half hour still. But so we'll leave mincha for now, but let's look at Ma'ariv. So during summer, how's it possible we're doing Ma'ariv while the sun's still in the sky? So you'll say, well, we won't get a minyan afterwards. No, I think most people agree that it's preferable to do it at night. So places with B'nai Brak, they'll do it in the way that it's preferable. But even in places like Gateshead, which is, from place, they will, I'm sure, daven Ma'ariv earlier. Because in summer, the sun only sets at 11:30. So they're also daven Ma'ariv at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, So
in Yeshiva, Ma'ariv would always be late because you're just learning Saturdays.
That's often how it would be. Although in my yeshiva, Ma'ariv was always 7 o'clock all year round. So in some, I'm not sure. I mean, I'd have to look at the Joburg thing. It might be that it also wasn't. Now, the reason for that is because we learn Ma'ariv from Yaakov. And it says Yaakov was leaving Israel, going to Lavan. And he stops at the place. And he encountered the place, which I mean to pray. He prayed there because kiba shemesh, the sun was setting. The sun had set, the sun was going to set. So there's an argument amongst the rabbis. So what is the actual time for Ma'ariv? One of the rabbis, Rabbi Yehuda, says you should daven Ma'ariv late afternoon. Late afternoon really is the time for Ma'ariv. That's it. You've got the early afternoon prayer and you've got the late afternoon prayer. And or you could even call it the evening prayer, but the evening prayer the time of the evening prayer starts late afternoon. Could be a very practical reason for that, is because you want to be able to see, that can be an important thing, whether it's to see in shul, whether it's to see walking home or whatever else. You could say that Hashem gave us that time to start the Ma'ariv prayer as practical, whatever reason it was, or the rabbis established that time period, whatever was established that time. You could give all kinds of practical reasons, but the point is that you can do Ma'ariv in the late afternoon.
When can you count the Omer from?
It's the same discussion.
Late afternoon.
In times of dire need. No, could you do it for late afternoon? I don't think so, because Omer is not the same as Ma'ariv. Remember, same with Shema. Same with Shema. No. It is. It's a good question, a good answer, because the same question when it comes to Shema. With Shema, even if we say Shema and Ma'ariv in summer, that doesn't count. So you've davened Ma'ariv, but you haven't said Shema. So you're going to need to say the whole Shema later on at home. But Ma'ariv, you don't need to repeat. You've already davened Ma'ariv.
And the same goes for Omer.
Same would go for the Omer, yeah. Same could. It's a little more complicated, but it could well be the same thing with the Omer. There are many people who are strict to recount the Omer in summer. The discussion comes up with Chanukah candles as well, because Chanukah candles for Shabbos, obviously you got to light before Shabbos. There's the whole thing where you try and make sure the candles will stay lit until, later on. But again, it's a slightly different criteria for Hanukkah candles, because Hanukkah candles was established to publicize the miracle. So whatever time period will lead us to publicizing the miracle. So where was I going with this? Now, with all of this,
in Shabbos, also during this time.
yes, the time that you can bring in Shabbos, your earliest time for bringing in Shabbos, it's also Plag HaMincha. And you'll see what we publish here at Morashah is we publish the earliest candles and latest candles. Earliest candles is Plag HaMincha. What that means is if you light your candles before that time, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And then the latest candles, obviously the latest candles. Now, Plag HaMincha during summer gets very late. The latest it gets in Cape Town, I think, is 6:32, beginning of December, end of December, beginning of January. Gets to 6:32, which means that you actually can't light your candles before 6:32. So there's one of the shuls in Cape Town that publishes latest time for candles is 6:35 in summer. I said, what are you talking about? You're giving people 3 minutes to light their Shabbos candles. Like, what are you saying? How can you expect such a thing?
The answer was?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Because they start.
Because people can't do the mitzvah lighting candles.
What do you offer? So either they're going to end up lighting it before, which doesn't count, or they're going to end up lighting later, which now as a community are accepting Shabbos early or whatever. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. I don't know. So that's why I like to kind of give people the right, or as close to the right window as possible. But now again, what comes out from all of this is that Ma'ariv is not actually exclusively an evening prayer. Ma'ariv is a late afternoon to evening prayer. I actually had this discussion
But it
with...
still is the following day's prayer.
Oh, now that's the problem.
Yes.
Now that's the problem. So to say that, well, you know what, for Wednesday, we're going to start Thursday night, Thursday late afternoon, and Ma'ariv can be in the afternoon or whatever. Yeah. Fine, there's no problem. But Shabbos, how can I daven the Saturday night Ma'ariv when the sun's still in the sky for Shabbos? And I'm saying Hamavdil Bein Kodesh Lachol and all of that.
And you're preparing for the next day.
Well, preparing for the next day, not so much, because I'm davening Ma'ariv, right?
Because you want to get the hell out of this.
Well, no, I'm davening Ma'ariv because I want to talk to God as I was appropriately mandated. Remember, davening Ma'ariv is not the same as, doing a chore. Davening Ma'ariv isn't the same as a chore. So that wouldn't be considered. It's like if you're preparing a shiur. Well, I've got a shiur on Saturday night. I'm allowed to learn the Torah on Shabbos afternoon for Saturday night. Well, yes, because it's not preparing on Shabbos. It's learning Torah. Right? So davening Ma'ariv, I would say, is the same. And here the problem is that obviously it sounds very strange to do such a thing. And the Mishna Brura picks up on this. And he says, even though the Shulchan Aruch says you can do this, and you need to leave straight away so you can daven your Ma'ariv in Shabbos afternoon, he says, the consensus amongst the late halachic authorities is not to do this because it looks crazy and people aren't going to understand how you can daven Ma'ariv but not do malacha. You're telling me I can daven Ma'ariv and I can make Havdalah, but I can't get in my car. All year round, I daven Ma'ariv and make Havdalah, I get in my car. How can you tell me this afternoon that I can daven Ma'ariv, make Havdalah, and not get in my car? And Therefore, he says, especially nowadays, that, by the way, the common opinion, so maybe I'll just, the Mishnah Brura's opinion on this, Aruch HaShulchan is a different view, Mishnah Brura's opinion, if we can start Ma'ariv from late afternoon, then we can only daven Mincha until late afternoon. Mishnah Brura says there's no overlap in the Mincha and Ma'ariv. You want to say Ma'ariv starts early, fine, but then Mincha finishes early. So that's the problem that we have, that we do Mincha late and Ma'ariv early. That sounds like, that's why you won't find it in Bnei Brak, Evan, is because that's the contradiction of Mincha late Ma'ariv. The Mishnah Brura doesn't like it, but he says if there's no other way to get a minion, you can do it. The Aruch HaShulchan, who always comes to defend the customs of the Jewish people, he says, no, the Mishnah Brura didn't quote the Mishnah Brura. He says that's not correct. They are two overlapping time periods. Mincha is afternoon through the night, and Ma'ariv is late afternoon, and includes the night.
But they also had late summers in Eastern Europe.
So the Aruch HaShulchan always comes
in the mornings, you wake up early, you water terror, you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the Aruch HaShulchan doesn't have such a problem with it, but that's what the Mishnah Brura says. Yeah. And he says, so even though Erev Shabbos, maybe you want to daven a bit earlier, Erev Shabbos, and then we'll say, well, we're accepting Shabbos early, but to daven Ma'ariv early, that doesn't make any sense. It's not that it doesn't make sense. It's not. It's wrong halachically because we should only start Ma'ariv later, and it's going to give people the wrong idea, and it's going to be a very confusing thing for people. So. He doesn't really dispute the halacha, really. I mean, the truth is we do follow the opinion that we can daven Ma'ariv during the day. He just says it's going to give the wrong message to people. We certainly understand why it's going to give the wrong message to people, but that's a very interesting concept that according to the Shulchan Aruch, there's a possibility of davening Saturday night Ma'ariv on Saturday afternoon. Which again, it's the whole point that he's making is to de-link the times from Shabbos from the times for davening. We always think of them as being the same, and he's saying they're actually two different systems which usually move together, but not always. Okay, next chapter, 294, the laws of Havdalah in davening. Oh, just one other thing, the Ramor adds it in this section, and we add in V'hu Rachum, and we say Baruch Hu with Arichot Noam, with a pleasant extension. What I would say is, what this means is, with Chazonos. We do a long and tuneful V'hu Rachum. Do a whole bit of extension for that. Why? In order to extend Shabbos. So again, this theme that runs through the whole thing. So again, Evan and I will mention that we will bow, we often have to bow to the practicalities and whatever else, but that's clearly a compromise from the ideal. The ideal is Saturday night. We're spending our time saying a nice extended goodbye to Shabbat. Maybe that's where Jews get it from, Because whenever you're leaving, you got to say goodbye 50 times and you never just kind of walk out. So that's probably from here. Okay, 294, the laws of the Havdalah that we say in Ma'ariv. Now, we do a lot of Kiddushes and we do a lot of Havdalahs. According to the basic halakha, you only need to say Kiddush once and you only need to say Havdalah once. But we say Kiddush a bunch of times, we say Havdalah a bunch of times. When do we say Kiddush? So we say Kiddush in our Amidah, that counts as Kiddush. We say Kiddush in Shul. Then we say Kiddush at home. The Havdalah, we say Havdalah not davening, we say Havdalah in Shul, we say Havdalah at home, right? Technically, one of them would suffice. Practically, two of them, one in your davening and one as a ceremony over a cup of wine. Now, practically, you do both, but we tend to do these extra Havdalahs for reasons that we'll explore now. One other point that I'll make, there's a famous ruling of Rabbi Akiva Eiger that saying to someone Shabbat Shalom or Good Shabbos counts as making Kiddush. Now, I don't know the context in which he said it. I think I heard it, but I don't remember. I don't know the context in which he said it. But for example, people who maybe aren't making Kiddush at home, but they're saying Good Shabbos, so at least they've fulfilled the mitzvah, even if they aren't davening. At least they've fulfilled the mitzvah of saying Tevayim Shabbos, because they've said Shabbat Shalom, and they've acknowledged the holiness of Shabbat.
Who complains about when it's too short and Friday night service?
Yes, just cut out.
Kiddush, you just say Shabbat Shalom.
That's right.
And done.
Yeah. So that's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger does. Look, the truth is, the Sfardim cut out Kiddush on Friday night in the shul because they said the whole reason that Kiddush was instituted was for the wayfarers who'd be eating dinner. Yeah. We no longer have wayfarers eating dinner in the shul.
Yeah, and of course, all sorts of problems with the wine and who drinks it.
Yeah,
I mean,
just grab it. Yeah. Correct. So I don't think we can, but the Sfardim did. But where was I going with this? So I have a personal, I say it's a chumrah, but it's not something that I'm bound to. It's just something I try to do. I try not to say to people Shabbat Shalom before it's actually Shabbat. Because according to Rabbi Akiva Eiger, you're then bringing in Shabbos. So for example, you come at Mincha. Everyone's about to daven Mincha. So I walk in, I say, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. Well, then what? I want to daven Mincha. I've already made it Shabbos. Already accepted Shabbos. I always try.
Accepted Shabbos.
Say?
You haven't in your mind accepted Shabbos.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, so I always say good Erev Shabbos. Until it's Shabbos, I try to say good Erev Shabbos.
So I was just thinking about shortening the service, sorry.
Yes.
If we say we make it there'll be Kiddush in the hall after shul, whoever is not hearing Kiddush.
Yes.
So you just make Kiddush.
Yes.
Would that be acceptable?
No,
as
'cause
a minhag, I mean, you
I
make
don't.
Kiddush,
I don't think so because it was instituted as part of the service.
Okay.
I've got a friend,
Still
Jacob.
doing it outside, it takes 2 minutes. But
Yeah. No. I understand. I've got a friend,
No,
Jacob.
come.
Jacob Robinson. He did I don't know if it was his masters on medieval Jewish guilds. And so the one thing, so I said to him, tell me the most interesting thing you learned. So he said, the most interesting I learned is that even though the kind of common knowledge is that the reason Kiddush on Friday night was instituted was for the sake of the wayfarers, he says that he learned in his studies, I can't vouch for it or not, he learned in his studies, no, the real reason is that it was like a ceremony that was done, that everyone in the shul would drink together from the cup, and it would like bond us together in a community, the same kind of ritual that all the medieval guilds had at the time. So we would have on a Friday night, that would be our guild, that would make Kiddush together and drink together. And it was established amongst the Ashkenazim, and that's kind of how it
But
was.
they used to that shoemaker shuls
So that could be something like that. But the minhag was established as in the service on Friday night. I mean, I'm happy to ask, but I'm confident the answer will come back that it's immovable. Okay, good. Then Havdalah that we make in the Amidah. So in the Amidah we say this Chonei Nadat. Now, why do we say it's in Chonei Hadat? Why does the Havdalah come in that bracha? So the point is that every bracha, every addition that we make in the Amidah has to be linked to the appropriate bracha. So if we're going to make an addition to pray for someone who's sick, we say that in Rafa'inu. If we want to make an addition on Tisha B'Av for the rebuilding of Yerushalayim, we say that in Vili Yerushalayim. If we want to make an addition for Chol HaMoed or Rosh Chodesh, in which extra offerings were brought, we say that in Ritzei, which is the bracha of the temple service. If we want to add extra thank yous, like for Purim or Chanukah, we say that in Modim, which is the bracha of thank you. If we want to say general sundry additions, like a prayer for rain, we put that in Shema Koleinu. That's a question, why not put that in Barech Aleinu? But okay, the blessing for a year and a blessed year, but okay, let's leave that for now. So where should Havdalah go?
This is a Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lachol.
Ah.
So that's distinguishing.
Great.
The answer is it shouldn't be an Amidah. Actually,
Okay, so it seems it should be in
it is,
there.
but it like.
So why? Okay, no, this is a good point that Evan makes. So, okay, why should it be in the Amidah generally? It should be in the Amidah because the Amidah should reflect the special time that we're in. And now we're at a special time of transition from Shabbat to after Shabbat. So that is the appropriate. Where should it be? So Rabbi Maisel said the same thing that Amnon is saying, and it seems to be based on a Yerushalmi, that it says, Im ein da'at havdalah minayin. If there's no understanding, how are you ever going to differentiate things? The whole bracha of Havdalah is that we are differentiating between Kodesh and Chol. That differentiation is based on understanding, and therefore the bracha is the bracha of understanding. So that, fits nicely. The Mishna Brura doesn't take that approach. He says, I'll say a more circuitous route. He says, really, it should go in Shema Koleinu. It's a sundry addition. However, the thing is, you remember you're not allowed to ask for your personal needs on Shabbat. And until you've made Havdalah, you shouldn't be asking for all your personal needs. Now we're about to be asking Hashem for health and teshuvah and forgiveness and redemption and blessing and that. So how can you ask him for those things before you made Havdalah? So therefore, in the first possible opportunity, which is Atzar Chonein, we put in the Havdalah, so that we then can pray for all the rest of our needs. So as you see, it's a more circuitous route to the point they're saying this is the right bracha. He's saying it's not really the right
But is that
bracha.
the proper Havdalah? I mean, can you answer your phone once that you've said that?
Yes, that's a proper Havdalah. You can answer your phone.
Okay,
You can't eat yet. You only eat after Havdalah over the cup.
Yeah.
But once you've said that Havdalah and only that is a proper Havdalah.
But again, say the opinion that you can say Mariv on Shabbat early because.
Yes, then he makes that point. So he says, even though you're making Havdalah and Mariv early, you still can't do any malacha until Shabbat is out. So So the truth is, you need two things.
You're still asking for those requests.
That's a good point.
So
Very good
it's
point.
like, obviously, it's not a problem writing those. Otherwise, you wouldn't.
It's not
Good
a proper,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. Very good point. I don't have a good answer.
We better not to in there for minutes.
Yeah, in other words, fine. What Evan's saying is fine. You've given a good explanation for the whole thing. Well, Ma'ariv really isn't only the evening prayer. It can apply even in the late afternoon. That's all well and good. But tachlis, you're asking for all your needs and it's still sun's still in the sky.
Yeah.
Good question. Very good question. I will try to remember to ask somebody. Okay. So now, so the, and this is the way it generally works. According to the Rambam, both Kiddush and Havdalah are Torah mitzvot. Most people agree that Kiddush is a Torah mitzvah. Most people say Havdalah is D'Rabbanan. The Rambam says both Kiddush and Havdalah are Torah mitzvot.
And how did you say it from the Torah? No.
Zachor. It's all part of Zachor.
Remember, you got to remember to forget it as well.
Well, remember is not just to remember in your head, obviously, commemorate. So commemorate Shabbat certainly incorporates the beginning of Shabbat. Does the mandated commemoration also include the end? That's the discussion. So most say no. And the Rambam says yes, that's part of the commemoration. So then we make Havdalah. So everyone agrees, again, the basic Torah obligation, if it's a Torah obligation, of both Kiddush and Havdalah is fulfilled by what you've said in davening. But the rabbis instituted it should be said over a cup of wine. I think that was one of the most brilliant rabbinic institutions ever. In fact, the rabbis took it a step further for Kiddush, is they said it has to be said over a cup of wine and with a meal. Because how many Jewish families who don't do all that much, they do Kiddush and have a Friday night dinner? Because that was how the rabbis established that we remember Shabbat. You fulfill one of the most important mitzvot, because they linked, technically you can fulfill the mitzvah by saying it in a paragraph in Shul, but they linked it to saying, no, you want to do it properly, you do it with a cup of wine at a Friday night meal. So the rabbis really created the Friday night meal as we know it. A fantastic idea. But you now have both. You have your basic obligation, which is fulfilled by Havdalah and the Amidah, and then you have the rabbinic institution of Havdalah over a cup. I'm going to call it a cup of wine for now, but we'll see later on that it doesn't just have to be a cup of wine. Now he says, before you've made Havdalah over the cup of wine, you're not allowed to eat. That was the way that rule was made. That goes together with the Rabbanan. What if you forget to say Atachon Antanu during the Amidah? So you forgot to add in that Havdalah in your Amidah. Technically, you don't need to worry because you're still going to make Havdalah over the cup of wine. And if all goes ahead smoothly, then that's absolutely fine. What if you forget to make Havdalah over the cup of wine? So what happens is like this. You forgot it in your Amidah, and you forgot it in your cup of wine, and you come home and you're having something to eat, and halfway through eating, you remember that you've forgotten. So they say, normally you don't have to repeat the Amidah just for forgetting the Havdalah and the Amidah. But here, where you forgot twice, you forgot in the Amidah, and you forgot to make Havdalah over the cup, now you actually have to repeat the Amidah. And that's viewed as a penalty. That's the way they put it. We levy a penalty upon you that you have to daven an extra mile because you just clearly haven't been paying attention very well at all. The Mishna Brura adds in that in this case, we would like you, if you forgot the Atachon and Tanu in that first part of the Amidah, first prize is just fine, carry on, do the rest of the Amidah as normal, and go home and make Havdalah over your cup of wine. But if you're not worried that if you're worried you won't have a cup of wine or you're worried or whatever else, you can add that Havdalah, that Atachon and Tanu in Shema Koleinu. Remember we said Shema Koleinu is the general place. So even though that wasn't what it was instituted for, you can add it in Shema Koleinu if you're worried you might not get it right otherwise. But preferably, if you left it out fine, just go make Havdalah over your cup of wine. Okay. What happens when Tisha B'Av falls on a Sunday? So you still make Havdalah in your Amidah, but you don't make Havdalah over your cup of wine until Sunday night.
Yeah. This is all men.
Yes.
Women don't do Ma'ariv most of the time.
That's true.
So they've only got the
Cup of wine.
one option, and
Yeah.
it's an obligation.
That is an obligation for men and women. Even though it's a positive time-bound mitzvah,
Yeah, that's where.
Zachor and Shamor are linked together. So if you have the prohibitions of Shabbat, you also have the obligations of Shabbat. And Kiddush and Havdalah viewed as the obligations of Shabbat.
Because as part of that one halacha of the day, there was this case where the pregnant women
Yes.
who, according to, I think it's as far, I don't know if it's far they're not obligated to eat on a Tisha B'Av, not obligated to fast on a Tisha B'Av that's been pushed over.
Yeah, that was the Sfardi approach.
But then she's got to do Havdalah with wine. She's going to be eaten.
Yeah.
So
So she should do Havdalah over on Shabbos. It's a good point. I mean, on Tisha B'Av, she should make Havdalah.
After this love, you said you still can't have one.
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct.
can you make it? So could she make a? Well, anyways, at night you can't say.
Yes.
You another beverage.
Yes, yeah. So we're going to see the idea about other beverages, but the answer still is going to be if right after Tisha B'Av you need to make Havdalah. If all you have is wine, then you can use wine. In fact, or even not if all you have is wine. If you're making Havdalah on wine, then you can drink wine. You can't drink wine because you just want to chill with friends and have wine. But if you're making Havdalah on wine, you can have wine. And the example is that's what we actually did here Sunday night. I made Havdalah on the grape juice, and I drank the grape juice.
And just so if a man goes to shul, say the man goes to shul, the woman doesn't. She comes back and shul, Havdalah. So she then doesn't make Havdalah.
She then?
Should she be the one to make the Havdalah because he's already made anything done?
So it's a good.
So actually, she's more. I don't know.
Yes. So we say that sometimes with Shabbos. The thing with Havdalah, I only remembered through the question, even though the Rambam says it's this full obligation, whatever else, there is a debate to what extent women are obligated in Havdalah. Even though we have this rule of Zachor and Shamor, I think especially if you learn not like the Rambam, that Havdalah is like a separate obligation. So if you learn it's part of the obligation of Zachor, well then women are obligated in Kiddush and Havdalah together. But if you learn it's a separate obligation, then women might not be obligated so much. And so even though we do have women make Havdalah, we're reluctant for a woman to make Havdalah for a man because maybe he's obligated and she isn't. He's definitely obligated and she's maybe obligated. So we make Havdalah for her because she's maybe obligated. Women can make Havdalah for one another. Then a woman shouldn't make Havdalah for a man because there you have that differentiation of levels of obligation. Good. Let me think if there's anything else. Then the Shulchan Aruch says here that let's say the guy davened Ma'ariv and forgot the Havdalah and the Ma'ariv. Can he go back and daven again? So he says, yeah, if he wants to go and do a new Amidah, he can do a new Amidah. But if he's halfway through and he wants to now go back to the beginning, he shouldn't do that. If you're halfway through and you remember, just finish Amidah. If you decide you want to do another one, okay, fine. Chapter 295, we make Havdalah and Shul. So then he says, we say, Vihi Noam and Ve'ata Kadosh, same as what we do. And we do it, we draw it out a little bit. Again, right? You can see they really didn't rush Motzei Shabbos. And he says, why do we do it then? This is all the Ramor. The Ramor, it seems to me, brings in a different style in many places to Shulchan Aruch. Because that is when the wicked return to Gehenna. Ideas like this. You get, I think the word is furlough, that you get an exemption from prison. You get time out of prison. So the wicked in Gehenna get a furlough over Shabbat. When do they go back after Shabbat? So they go back after Shabbat when we are saying our Motzei Shabbos prayers. And he says, because the idea is the wicked only go back to Gehenna when the Jewish people have finished their Ma'ariv prayers on Motzei Shabbat. And as soon as we finished our Ma'ariv prayers on Motzei Shabbat, then the chief in charge of the souls says, everyone, get back in. Jewish people have finished their davening. So that's why we try to drag it out a little bit. So again, my response to those who want to rush is, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say this, but the message is, look, very nice that you want to catch a movie, right? But what about Zayda, who's right, who needs your help to enjoy Shabbos a little bit longer? You know, so that's,
People.
sorry?
Not a generous of spirit.
Generous of spirit is right. Generous to spirit. So that's the way the Ramah puts it. Again, it depends how you want to approach these matters. But the Ramah, who certainly has more of this, you could say, mystical consciousness, is concerned about that, and that's what he gives as the reason for the way in which we do our Ma'ariv service. Okay, and then he says, if Yom Tov falls in the coming week, we don't say V'hi Noam or V'ata Kadosh, but we do say V'yitein Lacha. Now, V'yitein Lacha is from the brachot that Yitzchak gave Yaakov. And the idea here is that you start the week with bracha. Now we're going to see this in Havdalah as well as in the Ma'ariv service. So there's two big themes that come out. The one again is how we try to delay, extend Shabbat as much as we can. That's theme number one. And then theme number two is that the Saturday night in Havdalah service is not just about the mitzvah of davening on Saturday night. It's not just about the mitzvah of making Havdalah. It's also about starting the week with bracha. And so a lot of what we do is geared around bracha as well. So there's this custom to say, V'yitein lacha, may Hashem bless you. So we sit around and say these prayers to bring this bracha into our lives, to ask Hashem for this bracha. So in this shul, very few shuls say that today, it seems. I haven't been all over, but very few shuls seem to say it. We used to say it here. Before my time, then there was a time where people said, do we really need to still keep saying this? The other shuls aren't saying it, maybe it can go already. And apparently the late Stan Khan used to sit Motzei Shabbos, even when the shul officially dropped it. Late Stan Khan used to sit Motzei Shabbos and say it, because he said, this is what we used to do. At least I'm going to still carry on saying it. But it is mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, although it doesn't really seem to be done too much. Then the Shulchan Aruch says that we make the Shaliach Tzibur makes Havdalah in Shul in order to do Havdalah for someone who doesn't have wine. And the Mishnah Brura says, look, if you've got wine at home, then it's better to make Havdalah at home because your family needs to have Havdalah also. Otherwise, what? It's very nice that you're sitting in Shul and you have Havdalah, but otherwise, So there's a couple things we see. The Kiddush we make on Friday night is really a symbolic Kiddush. Nobody fulfills the obligation of Kiddush on Friday night through that Kiddush. The reason is because Kiddush only works if it's linked to a meal, and we're not having a meal. So an isolated Kiddush doesn't count. So if we're making Kiddush in Shul, it doesn't count. It's just a symbolic Kiddush. But on Saturday night, the Kiddush, the Havdalah that we make in Shul is a real Havdalah. And so that means a couple of things. One, it means is that if you fulfill your obligation with this Havdalah, then you've fulfilled it. And the other thing that it means is that it has to be done in a correct way. Now, the one thing that I often see is that when somebody's making Havdalah in Shul, they just take a sip of the wine. Now, what we're going to see is that for Havdalah, you need to have at least, I think, a cheekful. Might even be a revi'it, like 80 mils. We'll have to see.
Half the cup, isn't it?
It depends on the size of the cup.
I've seen a half a cup.
Yeah, you should drink the whole cup. That's what Shulchan says. You should drink the whole cup. If not, so at least have, I don't know, half the cup, 80 mils, a cheekful. At least have a substantial amount. There's some people that only have a sip. So there used to be an argument in Durban that the guy would make Havdalah for the shul. So he would make Havdalah and he'd take a sip. And then people would go home saying that they've had Havdalah. And so somebody went up and said, no, you've got to drink it properly, So then he would drink a little bit more. And then go, no, you got to drink more, Because if you're going to fulfill the obligation, then you have to actually drink the wine. What we do here is, Saturday night, we always look around, is there a family that's here? Let's say, Malcolm Siegel's here with Nadia and the children. So you say, Malcolm, will you make Havdalah? Because then he's making for his family as well. They're not going to be making at home. So he might as well be the one to make in Shul. Otherwise, let's say I would make Havdalah. This is a bit strange. I'm going to make Havdalah here and then I'm going to go home and make Havdalah at home. Yeah, that's how we
I
do.
was asked to make Havdalah. I said no, but now I know why.
That's why your family was
Dad,
here.
I mean,
Exactly.
They're all here, of course.
Yeah. So that's generally what we try to orchestrate. Makes sense.
But people who've heard it and it drinks enough wine, they've fulfilled their proper obligation.
If they intend to, correct. If they have kavanah.
But then surely going home and doing it again is duplicating brachos and vain and things.
Unless there's people at home that you need to do it for. And the same with Kiddush. I can't remember who it was, but there was a rabbi, I think it was in the Middle Ages. I'm pretty sure I heard it from Mark Shapiro. There's a rabbi in his community. He used to go around to every family and make Kiddush. Nobody in the community could make Kiddush. Nobody knew anything. The rabbi knew how to make Kiddush. He would go from home to home, making Kiddush for each family. And they would then have their Friday night dinner. But you can only do it once for yourself. But if you're doing it for somebody else, then that's okay. So it would be acceptable for me to make Erev Shul and then go home and make again. But why do that if Evan or Amnon could do it and they've got their family?
Yeah, but if you hold that the women aren't obligated.
So we do it out of safek for women. But that's enough to justify. But I mean, let's say that would be a good example. I make it home. I come home. So now it's just have Vivian East here. So she can make for herself. She can make for herself and the children. Yeah, that there wouldn't be a problem with. What's another example along these lines? So that's how we do it. So that's a proper Havdalah. Yeah, and the idea then is just to drink wine. But I'll just mention it now. We can go into it in more detail next time. But what we see from here is this principle that I mentioned about the bracha. A lot of the Havdalah ceremony also goes around bringing bracha into the new week, not just the technical mitzvah. If you want to fulfill the technical mitzvah, you say your berei gafen. We'll do the fire and the spices. It's part of Havdalah, slightly separate reason. And you say Mavdum ben kodesh lachol, drink the wine and go home. What is added on because of the bracha? All those verses, Hinei el Yeshua teftach v'lo evchad. Right? All those verses before, it's not classically part of Havdalah. They're introductory verses of bracha to bring blessing into the new week. We fill the wine up to overflowing, or we spill the wine. Why? Because we show that we want such an abundance of wine that it should be like overflowing. We, what else do we do?
We look for our reflection.
No, I can't do that. I can't overflow the wine.
You can't overflow the wine. So I'll just tell you. I thought you were going to say that. Rabbi and Gavi Ziegler's older brother, Aaron Ziegler. I remember in Yeshiva, he had a real problem. He said, "It's bal tashchit. You're wasting." He says, "How can you justify wasting just for a bracha?" And he looked, and he's got like an encyclopedic mind, and also he's got a big library. And he looked, and he found one of the rabbis, I don't know, 1400s or whatever, who said, "No, don't do it. It's bal tashchit." And I checked with Gavi. I said, until this was 10 years ago. I said, "What does he do today?" He says he never overflows the wine. He says, it's bal tashchit. Doesn't like that. So that's you certainly have a Talmid Chacham on whom you could rely, and that I think is our cue. It's 9:00 and clearly time to stop. We'll leave it there. We'll continue next time. 9 to 6.
Is some Kabbalistic extra, isn't it?
Yes and no. The